commentary, entertainment, sports, news, and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show here on Newsmax TV. I'm Rob Astorino, filling in for Steve. And, you know, as we start looking at the world, it's become a smaller and smaller place, but there's some hot spots all around the countries that would affect the United States in many, many ways. And our foreign policy is having, in many ways, a detrimental effect on what's going on in the world. Joining us right now is Elliott Abrams, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and a former Deputy National Security Advisor for President George W. Bush. He joins us from Virginia right now. Elliott, thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Hi.
So I want to ask you a crazy question to begin with. If you had to give a grade to President Obama on his foreign policy, I'm sure you're not giving an A, I'm sure you're not giving a B, you're probably not even near C, but what would you say is his best moment in foreign relations?
Oh, I suppose the killing of Osama bin Laden.
Mm-hmm. So that's what keeps him at a D and not an F?
You're jumping to conclusions here. I guess I wouldn't give him an F, but I'd give him a D minus maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So
a lot of the problems are problems we could have avoided. He could have avoided.
In what way? And which is the worst?
Well, here's an example. He just announced yesterday, $500 million for the Syrian rebels. People have been telling him to do that for 2 years. His own people, Panetta, General Petraeus, Hillary Clinton even, been saying, look, we need to help these people. And for 2 years, he's been saying, no, 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 no. Now he says, yes, 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 yesterday. But, you know, it's going to be a lot harder now than it would have been 2 years ago. That's just a self-inflicted wound.
And there's been about, what, 160,000 people killed in Syria already, millions displaced? I mean,
160,000 dead, 8 million, a quarter of the population, out of their homes.
Out of all the Middle Eastern countries, what do you think is the one that we should be deathly afraid of right now? Is it Iran?
It's Iran because they're first of all a big sponsor of terrorism, but secondly, they're the one that's going for a nuclear weapon now. That's really, really trying to increase their power in the whole region. And they hate America, not the people. I don't mean the Iranian people, but the Ayatollahs.
But how could that be? There are no partner in the Middle East.
Well, this is another, you know, the president's been trying to do this since 2009. His whole idea at the beginning was engagement with Iran. And he couldn't do that after the people rose up in June 2009. He's back to it now, seeing them as a potential ally. They are an enemy of the United States. This is crazy to think of them as a potential ally. And it really spooks the Israelis and our Arab friends to think that we make this mistake.
Yeah, and, you know, I guess the old saying, what, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but I mean, I think we're going a little too far on this one. And you just mentioned Israel. I've been to Israel. You've been there a zillion times. I am amazed at how this country and the people of Israel live on a daily basis with threats all around them, and yet they still manage to smile, to have a good, growing economy, a stable democracy. And yet, it seems that time and time again, this president, this administration has thrown Israel under the bus, and things are probably the rockiest in relations that they've ever been.
I think the Israelis have really lost faith in him. So the Arabs, by the way. I mean, that's the funny thing about this. It's not as if, you know, well, you got to choose the Israelis or the Arabs. They have all lost faith in the United States today under President Obama as a reliable ally because they just don't know what he's going to do next. You know, policy changes from one day to the next. And they all remember the Syria red line, you know, last summer, chemical weapons, and he turned on a dime. You hear that in every conversation out there. They have not forgotten that.
Well, you're not supposed to use a dry eraser marker that you could, you know, just wipe off the board. That's not scary. It's the permanent marker that you're supposed to put for a red line that people are supposed to respect, but that's not happening anymore. Where are we, do you think, with Middle East relations as it relates to Israel? Because clearly, here in New York, there are many Jews who have relations directly with Israel who, as I've talked to them, are really frightened about what is happening down the pike, short term as well, with the state of Israel. There seems to be anti-Semitism. You see what happened with the Presbyterian Church. There seems to be a movement in the United States to sort of push away from Israel. Long term, that cannot be good, I can't imagine, for the United States.
No, I think the Israelis are worried. I mean, they look around them, Syria to the north. They're very worried about Jordan to the east because we've heard from ISIS, from the jihadis, that they want to attack the king of Jordan. And the Israeli-Jordanian relationship is a good one. They're at peace. They have a peace treaty. So they're worried about what's going to happen to Jordan. Obviously, they see the same thing we do in Iraq. They're definitely worried about Iran getting a nuclear weapon, and they're not sure at all that the president's going to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. So they are really in a kind of fortress mentality right now. And I wish that we were a more solid friend of theirs right now. Thank God, I would say, first of all, for the American evangelicals who are really solid as a rock for Israel.
I remember I went to Israel about 2 years ago with the Jewish Community Relations Council, and it was a mission, and it was packed. Our schedule was just packed. We went from top to bottom. We went in the Golan Heights, and we went to the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and we were in a town called Sderot, which you've probably been to or heard about, where on average every third day rockets get launched into this little village. And it's amazing that people live this way, and as they turn to the United States, always looking that they're going to be there, I think what's happening now, from what I'm hearing, is that most Jews here in America, certainly, and probably Israelis, are saying, will they actually be there when the time comes, if the time comes?
Yeah, there's a great worry. When I ask Israelis what worries you most, many times the answer is, you guys. That is, the United States. Is obviously, we're their greatest friend, but the question is, right now, with Obama policies, is he going to be a really reliable ally for them?
What would you rate?
It's a real problem.
Yeah, where would you rate Secretary of State Kerry on this?
Well, they like Kerry in the sense that they don't think he's deceptive. They don't think he's tricky. They don't think he's a liar. They think he's trying to do the right thing. But they don't know where he's getting his ideas. I have never met a single Israeli, not one, who thought this idea that, he was going to make peace in 6 months was a sane idea. And they also know that the president doesn't seem to take his advice. When it comes to Iran or Syria or anything, the president doesn't seem to take any advice. Yeah. So I would say they kind of like Kerry, but they don't think he's going to save them.
What about Russia? The bear certainly has awoken and now dealing directly with China on many things. When the music stops and there's 3 countries and 2 seats, is it going to be Russia and China and the U.S. is out?
Well, that's a great worry over there because, what's happening in Syria is Russia is proving itself to be a reliable ally for Syria and Iran, in a way a more reliable ally than the United States is. You talk to the Syrians or the Iranians, they think Russia's a pretty good ally. Go talk to the Poles and the Czechs. They won't say that about the United States. They worry about the United States. So I think the thing about Russia, the one thing about Russia that is good news for us, he's got a one-crop economy, and it's oil. Mm-hmm. And if we could ever get world oil prices down from about 105 now to, say, $75 a barrel, he's done, The Russian economy collapses, his military budget collapses. But for the moment, with oil at that high a price, he's riding high.
What about in Ukraine right now, in the last 30 seconds or so? This is a step forward for Russia as they provoke what is an ally to us, Ukraine. Do you see this getting worse, or do you think it's sort of calmed down a little bit?
I see it getting worse because I think he's going to try little tricks. He's done Ukraine. Next is, the Baltic states, and the same kind of covert actions first. And now he doesn't have to send in the Russian army. So I think we should worry a lot about what he's got coming next for us.
Since you were in the State Department, I guess I got to ask you this question real quick. Secretary of State Clinton, who is the presumptive Democratic nominee potentially for president, a neighbor of mine, if you will, in Westchester County, A, B, C, D, or F as a Secretary of State?
Well, I'd give her a C plus. I think she didn't accomplish much. It's not her fault. The president really gave her no leeway. He made all the big decisions. So she did a lot of travel. She tried, but I just don't. If you start listing her accomplishments, it's all, I went to 100 countries. I created a new bureau. It's all inputs.
Right.
What's the output? What's the achievement? Not much.
Well, it's certainly a mess right now, and we've got a president that most people don't fear, and that's a problem. When you have no fear and no respect, we're nowhere near being the police officer that we were once and maybe should be still, because the world doesn't look to us anymore. Elliott Abrams,
Yep,
thank you
agree
very
with you.
much. Coming
You're
up
welcome.
next, we've got the best of Give Me Five right here on the Steve Malzberg Show.